Hello, my name is Nick Caldwell, and today I'm going to be doing an analysis on the top medical hospitals within the United States, and also off of these hospitals, the type of employees that stand out within these hospitals. So first, looking at the data set that I'm working with, the data set has a variety of different variables, such as credentials, job title, company name, the addresses of these different employees, and also the addresses of the companies, what city they're located in, the state, their postal code, the country code, the product code of these different companies, membership join date, the renewal date, which is also when members of these companies, the employees, like to renew their membership, and also the chapter initiation, which is once the employees are actually in the company, when is that company joined, the type of membership that the member has, the employee has within the company, the professional role within their company, and the work site, so the work where the work is performed. But of these different variables, the key ones I'm going to be looking at today are the companies within the United States. I'm going to be working with a few maps that illustrate where they're located, also the different type of professional roles of the employees, the ones that stand out, and also the job titles as well. So those kind of go hand in hand. And the credentials of the employees. So this is all the schooling, background information that they have coming into the work area that they bring into their work environment. Also the addresses as well. This is going to help with some mapping and the type of membership the employee is within the company. Looking at the first visualization, this is a map that illustrates where the majority of the data is located. So there's a variety of different cities such as Fort Wayne, Auburn Hills, Traverse City, even Seattle, but the majority of the information that I'm working with today is based out of North Kansas City, and these cities are Kansas City, Lee Summit, Overland Park. This is where the majority of the companies are located and the employees reside that I'm going to be looking at today and doing visualizations with. This chart right here depicts the companies with the oldest membership joining dates. So this actually shows where the employees of the certain company, this illustrates how many employees started at the company with a long time ago. So it's kind of based off of how old not only the hospital is, but how old the employees have been within the data set, have joined into the hospital and have been working with that company. So this illustrates the top hospitals: University of Kansas Hospital, and then second, University of Kansas Hospital Authority, and then finally third, St. Luke's Health System. This also shows only the top 9 hospitals. There are more within the data set, but these are the most relevant in my opinion. And this filter over here lets you filter out the company name that you want to look at. So if I wanted to look at, say, Cerner Corporation, for example, I could just filter into Cerner Corporation and see exactly where the most members joined and what that join date was and how long ago it really was. The second data set shows the companies that have the most employee job titles. So in terms of the data set that I'm working with, the companies that have the most various employee job titles and the most significant employee job titles of those are illustrated with St. Luke's Health System being number 2, and right behind University of Kansas Hospital. Those two have kind of drawn away from the rest, but also University of Kansas Hospital Authority is up there in the top 3 again. But as you see based off the data, you see that University of Kansas Hospital and St. Luke's are kind of leading the pack. There's also another filter within here that shows you can look again at which company has the most employee job titles depending on what company you want to look at. For example, Cerner, again, you could look at how many are within that company, or even St. Luke's if you wanted to see how many employees are within St. Luke's Hospital that have a certain job title that stands out. So going off of that again, the standout hospitals are University of Kansas Hospital and St. Luke's Health System. The reason being is because they have a vast majority of employees there that not only were old and have been with the company for a while, so their membership join date dates back to quite a longer time than most of the other hospitals, and also the individuals who work here have a plethora of different job titles and job titles that actually stand out within the data set. So within these companies, employees can be a part of a membership, and the most common membership is depicted here, which is called the individual organizational affiliate. So this is the type of member that the majority of the individuals within the data set are. Following that, they're just a regular member, which is just slightly different, and then the diamond corporate membership is the third most common membership of employees within their companies. As you see, I would have guessed going off of this data that the majority of people would have been a regular member, but the ability for people to become such as a diamond corporate, the reason why that may be up there so highly is because some of this data set does deal with CEOs of the company or even CFOs or CTOs, just a variety of individuals who are higher up in rankings. So they're obviously going to have a nicer membership within the company, which is going to reap better benefits for them as an employee. So going off of this, the states with the most employee credentials. So this depicts of the employees that we have within the data set, what states actually have the companies where the employees' credentials vast exceed all the other states. So Kansas and Missouri, the reason being why Kansas and Missouri do have a larger amount of employee credentials as opposed to the other states that are listed is because they have a majority of their offices located there, such as Kansas Hospital, the KU Medical, St. Luke's Hospital, Cerner Corporation. All these are located in the Kansas, Missouri area. So they're obviously going to have more employee credentials. So it's going to kind of skew the data, which is depicted in this chart, kind of because the data is skewed already that I'm working with. So the top hospitals, this bubble chart shows the companies with the most employee credentials and job titles. So this is a calculation of not only employee credentials that employees have from previous experience, but also the current job titles that they have. This is combined. So as you see, the University of Kansas Hospital once again at the very top of the chart, followed by St. Luke's Health System, number 2, and then Children's Mercy Hospitals and Clinics has kind of replaced that University of Kansas Hospital Authority. If you remember previously, that was kind of ahead of Children's Mercy, but it seems as though the individuals, employees that work at Children's Mercy have more credentials and job titles combined than University of Kansas Hospital Authority. But then you also have to keep in mind that authority system of KU Hospital is just a deviation off of the KU Hospital system. So it is likely that most of the individuals are classified under KU Hospital, so KU Authority would kind of be knocked out, thus replaced by Children's Mercy. This chart right here depicts, once again, the same data we just saw. So it illustrates those job titles and credentials of employees just on a different scatter plot basis. So this depicts on the x-axis we have the amount of credentials, and on the y-axis the amount of job titles. So this is just a conglomeration of the two. As you see, St. Luke's and University of Kansas Hospital are greatly separated from the majority of the populations and really pulling themselves apart. And in the bottom left corner you have hospitals such as Centers for Medical and Medicaid Services, Adverse Health Systems. They are very low on the spectrum, so it just really shows the difference between the two hospitals and the data we're working with. This chart right here illustrates the different work sites and the hospitals with the most job titles. So number 1, the majority of people use integrated delivery within their hospitals, and they have a multi-hospital system. And then second is they're an academic medical center, and then third it's a vendor. So these are just the type of institutions that the individuals work at. This has a filter, so you can filter it out by company name. So this chart is actually based off of the amount of company name. It's filtered with company name, following the amount of individuals that work at the job sites and have certain job titles and depicted in the chart. So the most notable hospitals and tactics: University of Kansas Hospital reigning number 1 throughout the majority of the charts, St. Luke's Hospital System right on its heels, and integrated delivery within these two hospitals help make them at the top of the list. However, there are caveats to all of this data. So I have quite a few concerns surrounding this data. Number 1, there was just a lack of information. There's a lack of information within the data. There's a few null values. There is quite a bit of problems in what the data actually contains. And also, there is no real purpose to this data, so I do not have enough background on what the data is being used for and why am I working with this certain type of data. What exactly am I supposed to produce based off of this data? What does the data depict? And not only how accurate is the data, because sometimes this data can be inaccurate. So the proposed changes I have to this data set is, it not only is it quite skewed because it only shows the majority of the hospitals within the Kansas, Missouri area. I would be interested to see the various hospitals and the data sets working throughout the United States, so we could kind of compare the type of employees that work in the KU medical offices, the St. Luke's hospitals, the Cerner corporations, as opposed to the Johns Hopkins Medical, for example, up in the Northeast, and see what type of employee credentials, job titles are held in that position, and how exactly those employees have been there, such as a membership date, time, and location, and compare that so we can get a more accurate representation, because the majority of the data just deals with the Kansas City, Missouri area. It would also be beneficial to see employee names, so we could actually put a face and name to the employees that we have, and we could bring out which employees have certain credentials and which employees stay at the top of the list consistently. Also, a total employee count would be nice to see, and the type of salaries that people are getting with these positions. I'd be curious to see what type of employees that have certain credentials and job titles get paid on an hourly or salary basis, especially opposed to the ones that say Johns Hopkins or Children's or whatnot. It would just be interesting to see that difference. The questions that I have surrounding this data are really, what is the purpose of this data? What exactly am I trying to do with the data set that I'm working with? Because it just seems like it's an influx of information dealing with different companies, different medical systems, different types and whatnot. But what exactly am I supposed to do with this data? Is it just for KU, and KU wants to see how they're doing in terms of the other Kansas City, Missouri hospitals with their employee credentials and job titles and whatnot and membership joining dates? Or is this data being used on a national scale, and hospitals want to compare their information to other hospitals, because that certainly is not possible really with this information, or the lack of, I should say, that is given within this data set. Also, where does this data set come? Is this just a data set off the internet, or is this a data set that has been given by and taken up by one of the hospitals based off their employee information systems? And also, how recent is this data? So has this data been something that's been updated annually? Because obviously job title is going to change if you get a promotion, or if you're fired, or if you change companies as well. And also the type of credentials could change too. If you're someone who's getting your master's program while still working in the hospital, but you graduate, your credentials are going to change. So how recent and how up to date is this data so that it is accurate?